What is up? Welcome into the first preview podcast, week one.
It's game day.
It's game day. Football's back.
Yeah, dude. I was juiced this morning. My wife was like, I got coffee downstairs. I was like, I don't need any coffee. Football.
I honestly made the mistake of having coffee, and I'm just like zooming.
Running through a wall all morning.
That's how you want it to be.
Right? We may be standing by the end of this podcast.
Maybe. All right. The show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. And we'll be getting to a lot of the lines, giving you guys our locks of the week later on in the show. But first, our first off the ball segment where we got some ground to cover, some news of the day. Ja'Marr Chase is back.
Yep.
The Bengals called his bluff. No Trent Williams here, no Brandon Ayuk. Didn't get the new deal, but he's back at practice. What are your expectations for him going forward?
First off, it reminds me like one of those old standoffs in the like where the Western town, both guys are, pacing it out and nobody fired a shot, right? Like nobody fired a shot. And now they just have to go back inside and have a beer together. That's Ja'Marr Chase and the Bengals right now. So I think it's great. Nobody's happier than Joe Burrow. Nobody's happier than Zach Taylor right now. So happy for Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, that's about it. This team goes only as far as those two will take them. They need Ja'Marr Chase on the football field. They're glad he's at practice.
Is he going to be, though? Because now you have, T. Higgins objectively not happy, right? Whenever you're playing on a franchise tag, you're not happy as a wide receiver. Ja'Marr Chase now, objectively not happy. The Bengals, last two seasons, known for coming out the gate slowly. Just flat out, they have not had the best starts to their years. What happens if that happens again? I think this is a kind of a powder keg situation.
If they start slowly and Joe Burrow is healthy through that slow start, I have no panic at all. And I'm sure there's a lot of Cincinnati Bengals who are feeling the same way. I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals team, I don't think the fan base is one of those groups that gets mad when they don't see their team in the top 3 of power rankings. Mm-hmm. I think they say, hey, we've got a really good thing going on. We want to be able to get into the dance. And I remember John Fox, my coach in 2016, we didn't get to the dance, but he always said, if you can get there, you'll be okay. Like everybody's got a shot. So for this Cincinnati Bengals team, just survive the storm that is inevitable. They never start quickly. They're always a little bit flat. They've got a lot of good things going for them. So I would say Bengals fans, do not trip, honey dips.
I'm a little more worried, I'll say. I think this just was an avoidable problem from the Bengals perspective that just give him top of the market money. It wasn't that big a deal. You want him there and happy the rest of his career. Like you have this unique situation with him and Joe Burrow that's never happened before in NFL history, where you get a guy's college teammate, record-setting year, goes to his same quarterback in the NFL. They break records themselves.
Hand in a glove.
And it's like, that's what you expect. And you're also like buying the market low-ish. Like it's only going to keep going up.
It'll go up by next week. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, this is how these things go. I agree with you there. I
think the Bengals missed the boat here. And again, if things go south, I think you have a lot of discontent in that locker room. But a guy who's not discontented, Patriots Surtain, gets himself a record-breaking deal at the cornerback position. 4 years, $96 million, 77.5 guaranteed, basically them just saying he's going to be there all 4 seasons. Now signed through the 2029 season. Sets the market at corner by $3 million, but corner still $11 million per year less than wide receivers. So people coveting those wide receivers more than corners, but a deal for the Broncos that, again, this is what you do, in my opinion, when you draft a guy in the first round. He outplays his rookie contract wholesale. He's one of the best in the NFL. You just give him that contract.
This is akin to having that offensive tackle in your offensive line room and just putting the handcuffs on them and giving them everything they want because they deserve it. And that's how impactful a guy like Pat Surtain is for this defense. And obviously I look at everything through an O-line perspective. But when you've got an off button out there and you've got a true pro that can make other people better, that can increase your scheme, as a defensive coordinator, I can say, well, we can take that half of the football field away and just focus on over here, the other stuff. And for Pat Surtain, $90+ million, that's great. I mean, maybe I should have tried to play defensive back, Mike.
Not a bad deal for the former NFLer's son, Patrick Surtain. All right, next up. Not contract news, not as wealthy a man, but a man who's got some decisions to make going forward.
It's a crossroads.
It's Brock Bowers. We saw him earlier this week in an interview in the locker room, fighting for his life with his hairline. And we have 2 different hairlines on the desk right now.
Yes, we do.
I have an incredibly low hairline. My hair is about an inch.
The guy's got a helmet.
Less than an inch from my eyebrows. And your hairline.
Yeah, so I am blessed like Brock Bowers. The good Lord only made so many perfect heads, and he didn't decide to put hair on them. And Brock Bowers, you're going to be in that elite group of gentlemen soon. And I really do think the beard, shaved head combo is going to be great for you. I'll tell you a story. I was at the NFL Combine before my rookie year, obviously, and my roommate was Brian Schwenke, and Brian Schwenke was a center with a beautiful ponytail. I'm not sure if you remember Brian Schwenke. He was with the Titans, and really nice guy, but very honest, brutally honest. And he told me, and my hair looked like Brock's, maybe worse. I didn't even have the hair in the middle. I just had you could slap it and make percussive noises on my skin on the top. Brian Schwenke was like, dude, you're going to be on TV tomorrow. Do you have a plan? I was like, what do you mean do I have a plan? He goes, people are going to see your hair tomorrow. Because I was a baseball cap all the time guy. So we shaved it. And I'll tell you what, I was born anew when I went out there at Lucas Oil with a shaved head and a beard. And I think it's perfect for the silver and black, the Raiders. You're going to look like a swashbuckling badass, dude. So go ahead. Come on home, Brock Bowers. I think you'll enjoy the water.
I'm taking a peek right now at the Combine, and it was a good look. I mean, it was completely clean.
Yep.
And that's better than that. The worst thing is when you're not accepting it, right? When you're literally hiding it with that growth.
It's hard,
you're letting
man.
one spot grow extremely long and thinking that can cover the rest. I obviously have no experience with this.
It is so emasculating when you walk around and you're just looking at other guys' hairs and you're like, dang, that's a good head of hair. I wish I had hair. No, dude, I got a good head for a shaved head. I think Brock Bowers is going to look great with it. You got my support. I can send you some great razors that I use. And until they give us some cash for the plug, I'm not going to say their name, but I'm going to send some razors out to the Vegas facility. My brother works there.
And especially, you're an NFLer. Like, when you're maybe overweight, you can't do the shaved head. It looks not as great. But when you're in shape, when you look like Brock Bowers does, you go that.
And when you play like Brock Bowers does,
exactly.
Come on.
You get the respect yourself. So
we didn't mean to blow up your spot, Brock.
Come on home. It's all right. It's all right.
You know.
Just come on home. All right. Next up, Roquan Smith was asked, how do you stop Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs offense? And he had this to say.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, just eliminating the run, making the guys one-dimensional, just like any other game. And once you make a team one-dimensional and knowing exactly what they'll do in given situation, it gives us a chance as a defense to really pin our ears back and do exactly what we would like to do.
Roquan, man. Roquan, one of a kind. And, really, really bright guy. I remember having him as a rookie in Chicago. And obviously a tremendous football player, but the game within the game is something that Roquan understands pretty well. I don't know what he's getting at here, saying keep them one-dimensional, make Patrick Mahomes throw the football, but he obviously is like a double agent here with psychology. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, the good plan against the Chiefs is not to just make them one-dimensional and let the best player that ever played the game throw the football around all day and play 7-on-7. But Roquan Smith trying to play a little mind games there. I respect it. Okay. I respect Roquan Smith. Used to hate playing against guys like that.
Yeah. There's no good answer to have in that situation where it's like, how you stop Patrick Mahomes. There's no great answer, but I don't think, hey, let's give the ball to Patrick Mahomes more is maybe the best one. I think your answer should be hit him.
Just let Steph Curry take 3-pointers.
There's been, everyone's thought they've had the book for years. People thought after that Bengals AFC Championship game, it's like, oh, let's do drop 8. And then he was nasty versus drop 8. Let's, get pressure with 4. And it's like, okay, yeah, everyone wishes they could get pressure with 4, but now their interior off the line's nasty and you just can't. So
I do remember that when everybody was just dropping a 9.
Yeah.
They would drop 9 and rush 2. And Patrick, for the first few times, was like, oh, crap. There's a lot of people in pass coverage, but people forget Patrick's getting better every single time he goes out there and practices. He's getting better every week. Even Patrick Mahomes has room for improvement, and he's improved throughout the course of the last few years. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch the Ravens go into Kansas City, and we're going to cover that game.
I was going to say, perfect segue into our next segment, but first, take a quick break.
It's a Service Academy triple header on CBS Sports Network.
On Sunday, the 2024 NFL on CBS season kicks off with a slate of great matchups, including the Patriots facing the Bengals, the Jaguars meeting the Dolphins, and Jim Harbaugh's coaching debut with the Chargers. It all begins at noon Eastern with the NFL Today. That's a CBS Sports Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
It's funny, no plug for that other pregame show, which your boy is on from 8 to noon. We kind of set the table for the NFL. We're the boots on the ground, kind of like pushing the pile. You know what I'm saying?
It's a CBS Sunday, and we're going to get to every single game here, starting with that Thursday night game where Roquan Smith wants to make the Chiefs one-dimensional. We'll see if that works out for him because the Chiefs are 3-point favorites. The over-under in this game is 46.5. And I'm going to start all these with giving you guys my tail of the tape.
Oh, I love this.
Where I think, and I love this graphic. If you're not on YouTube, it's fantastic.
It's a little Tecmo-ish.
Where I think each team has the advantage. So head coach, I'm going to give it to the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm breaking any ground here saying Andy Reid is the best head coach in the NFL right now. Quarterback, I'm giving it to the Chiefs as well. Again, we're not breaking ground. Receivers, Hollywood Brown is out for this game with a shoulder injury. So I'm going Ravens in this one. Backfield with Derrick Henry, I'm going Ravens as well. Offensive line with all that turnover on the Ravens, I have to give it to the Chiefs, even if they're starting a rookie at left tackle. Defensive line, this one was probably the toughest one because I thought last year that the Ravens defensive line would have wiped the floor with the Chiefs defensive line, right? If you're picking between the two, I'm going that direction. But this year, I think the Chiefs, I have to give them the nod. The Ravens lost a little this offseason. They lost their defense coordinator. And again, Chris Jones is so far and away the best defensive lineman in this game that I'm going to give them the slight nod. But that one's more of a toss-up. Linebackers, going with the Ravens here. When you have Roquan Smith, you're getting the nod at linebacker. And then secondary, I'm going to give the Ravens it as well. Kyle Hamilton, a big reason of that. But that one's close as well. So all that being said.
I disagree only on one here. I disagree on the receivers.
Okay.
And it's because of the quarterback. At the end of the day, when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes, you can throw anybody out there pretty much, and he's going to take you on a hell of a ride. I think that with the guys that they do have in the building, not named Hollywood Brown, there is still something to be had offensively. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes can become a chameleon. He can throw it down the field. He can throw it underneath, the mesh concepts, the outbreakers, the inbreakers. Mahomes does anything, and it doesn't matter who's out there. And as long as his guy's 87's out there, is he going to be in your receivers category?
Yeah, so receivers, I'm saying
anybody who catches the football.
And tight ends. But, it's not like the Ravens have a slouch themselves.
No, they don't. Mark
Andrews can play.
But I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, the quarterback selection bleeds into the receiver tail of the tape for me. So I'm going to disagree with you there. But I love your breakdown, and I love the graphic too.
There's a hierarchy, though, of those positions. It's not just count them up on each side, and that's one that wins. When you got the HC and when you got the QB,
yep.
And while they're close, it's not like the Ravens are slouches themselves at HC and QB. Those are going to put them over the edge. And also the line. I think the offensive line is the biggest one to me.
Yep.
Because you're asking starting guards for the Baltimore Ravens this one, Andrew Voorhees, Daniel Faalele, to block Chris Jones. Two guys who have never, I believe, started at guard in their careers to date. That's your first matchup.
Wonder how much sleep they got in the old Crown Plaza Marriott last night, just watching the 95 cut up, 95 Chris Jones, just watching the Chris Jones cut up, getting ready.
And if you go back to last year when obviously they had defended their crown on that Thursday night, lost to the Lions, Chris Jones wasn't in the lineup. Travis Kelce was banged up as well. So that I don't think that Super Bowl hangover is applying to this Kansas City Chiefs team. I like that side.
A couple things I want to see from the Chiefs.
Yeah.
A little attention to detail. And I know it's kind of an oxymoron because they pay attention to details. They do a great job. But the offensive line. Kingsley's going to be out there at left tackle. He's wet behind the ears still. But the thing that you fail to realize is he's playing against probably the best left guard in football in Joe Thuney, in my opinion. From a pass protection standpoint, I feel like you can come along in the run game pretty well as a rookie, even if you're inexperienced, because that's just, hit your landmark and go drive your feet and finish guys. And that's double teams more often than not. But when it comes to the pass protection, you're going to be looking at a lot of opportunities for Joe Thuney to get the 3 technique started or a 2-eye with his eyes outside on Kingsley. I think that the messaging in that room is probably go shoot your shot. I know Andy Heck wants guys to go near point guys, get first significant touch on these rushers. And the better way to do that is knowing that your homie's inside of you. Like you can swing at the fastball. You can swing at the fastball. So I'm going to stand up. So if let's say I'm the right guard here, okay, and I set, and the 3 technique is here. He crosses my face to the center. Now my eyes are immediately outside. So, obviously Kingsley's on the left. I would be having my eyes outside. You have You see with your hands, you feel here, and you see there. That gives Kingsley the confidence to go out there and shoot his shot. Because what happens when you don't fire your gun as an offensive tackle? You end up with a spear in your chest, and that's the long arm of a defensive lineman. They don't want to see that because that means two bodies, the rusher and the offensive lineman, are coming at Patrick Mahomes. That's not good. Let's get a confident game plan, allow Joe Thuney to keep those eyes on Kingsley. And the other thing, the attention to detail, Juwan Taylor. Pre-snap.
Mm-hmm. No penalties.
Are we going to be able to clean this thing up?
Can we stay on the line?
The eyes of the world will be on you tonight. And I like Juwan Taylor. I had an opportunity to go speak with that offensive line before the Super Bowl. They were locked in. Obviously, they handled their business. But at the end of the day, you can't give up freebies. You can't be going backwards as an offense. And I think a lot of the reasons they went backwards as an offense last year was these pre-snap penalties.
Yes. And obviously, that was like a big reason for the offensive, just how they ground to a halt in a lot of games, was holdings, false starts, just killing them a year ago. So I would expect, I don't know, sometimes guys are just wired that way, where they're just inconsistent.
Well, it's like, rushers. Some rushers is like, hot, 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 and they jump every time. Like, there's some guys that just jump. They're like twitchy. And I think Juwan Taylor wants to get a great jump. I mean, you watch guys like Lane Johnson, people say he's cheating with his jump. Juwan is trying to get like that. A lot of guys are. I was trying to do that at guard.
Are we riding Chiefs? I'm thinking Chiefs.
I'm riding Chiefs all day, baby. Chiefs Kingdom.
All right, on to Friday night. First Friday night opener in Brazil. Unique one. First one ever there. Packers against the Eagles. Technically a home game for the Eagles, counting as, but when they're 17 games now, you don't get the even home games anymore. Eagles, 2.5-point favorites in this one. Over-under at 48.5. They're predicting some points to be put on the board. Some injuries to note. Edgerrin Cooper, Marshawn Lloyd, the two Packers rookies at linebacker and running back, respectively, have been limited. One with a groin, with a hamstring throughout the week. Romeo Doubs, questionable with a hand. Tucker Kraft has been ailing a back. All been limited throughout the week. And then on the other side, Devin White's out with an ankle. Didn't even make the trip.
Yep.
Dallas Goedert, supposed to play, but has had an oblique injury. My tail of the tape. Head coach, I'm giving the nod to the Packers at this point. Matt LaFleur. Quarterback, I'm giving the nod to the Packers. What I saw from Jordan Love last year, hard not to. That's where it ends, though, offensively. This receiving core, backfield, and offensive line for the Eagles clearly
all-star cast.
Yeah, clearly get the tick marks for me. Defensive line was probably the most difficult one that I had to think about between these two. It's realistically a toss-up because the Eagles have so many kind of ascending players that they could go back to form. But what I saw last year, I'm going to give the nod just to the Packers, just a little bit. But both teams probably end up among your top 5 defensive lines in the NFL this season. Linebackers, don't make me choose. Neither of them are good. Both the weaknesses of their respective defenses. So I gave that one to nobody. And then the secondary I gave to the Packers. But again, it's one that this one's tough. I like what they did bringing in Xavier McKinney. I think with Jair Alexander, those are two guys you can hang your hat on knowing they're going to play. Eagles don't necessarily have that guy now with Darius Slay, well over 30. James Bradbury on IR, that secondary that was so good a couple of years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, non-existent anymore. It ain't walking through that door. So giving the nod to the Packers there. But an international game, going to Brazil, now it's not a different time zone the way going to London has been. It's not, you don't have to deal with those sort of jet lag problems, but it's still different. And it's still not going to be like a home field advantage for either. So to me, this one, I really don't have a strong take either way.
Well, I'd say when you obviously I did the Europe trip, and that's a time zone issue, and that's a whole other conversation we can have, and that's tough for guys. I did see they were telling, I think it was the Eagles, do not sleep on the plane, yada, yada, yada. They want you to sleep when you get home at your normal hours. But just getting out of your routine is hard. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. And when you're in another country, you try to make everything feel as normal as possible, but everything from the forks that are at breakfast and the bacon that they serve is a little bit different, and the eggs may be different. You have a routine as a football player. When you get out of your routine, that's when things can go haywire. But luckily for both of these teams, they're going to be on a level playing field because they're playing in Brazil. Both the teams are out of country. I think the real tail of the tape will be Jalen Hurts' ability to deal with pressure. It's something that we've seen can be a hindrance to his performance at times. And I really like this Packers group. I feel like with Rashawn Gary's ability to go inside, go outside, run a lot of games, he's going to be able to work inside, because obviously with Lane Johnson out there at right tackle, it's kind of that off button we talk about. And there's not many people in the NFL who can give him, a tough enough time to make him sweat. So I think forcing the interior games, watching the 3-man games could come into play with a late looper going to get Jalen Hurts, getting in his vision, not necessarily getting a body on Jalen, but getting somebody in that throwing lane, make him feel you early and often. And for the Eagles, it's going to be Vic Fangio disguising looks and trying to get the young players involved in an advanced way in his defense, which, as you know, they can hit you from a number of different ways. And I remember practicing every day against that Vic defense. There's spinner looks, there's different rushers, there's NASCAR packages. And that's not even to bring in the shell of the defense, which can come into play. FUP, free safety up, SUP looks, strong safety up. And Vic's going to have an opportunity to really try to puzzle these Packers pre-snap. And obviously LaFleur knows that, and he's probably going to be in his guys' ears about some of the things that he's seen from Vic in the past. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts dealing with pressure and this Packers receiving core getting on the same page with their quarterback pre-snap. They have to be able to see the same thing.
Yeah, the biggest, I think the matchup to me is truly just the Packers O-line versus the Eagles D-line. If the and everyone talks about the youth on the Packers wide receiving core, and rightfully so, but 4 of the 5 starters for the Packers on the offensive line are also on their rookie deals. This is a young offensive line as well, with Rasheed Walker, Josh Myers. We'll see who starts at right guard, whether it's Sean Ryan or Jordan Morgan, the first rounder. Zach Tom at right tackle. So, there's youth there that if they hold up, if they exceed expectations, if those guys have taken the next step and they can handle this Eagles defensive line, I think the Packers win. If they look like youngsters, I think the Eagles win. I think that's it.
It could be a slow start, too. So don't shut your TV off. This thing's going to be fireworks by the second quarter for sure, with the receiving core for both groups and obviously the offensive line for the Eagles. Things are going to be moving quick as the game goes, but they'll start pretty slow, I think.
If I had to pick, I think I'd lean Packers.
I'm going to go Eagles, just for conversation's sake.
All right.
And it's a pretty tight line.
On to the 1 p.m. Sunday games. And the Titans traveling to Chicago to face the Bears. We didn't have a full...
A lot of X's on the Chicago side.
A lot of X's on the Chicago side, but we didn't have a full Hard Knocks breakdown for you because you said it was too difficult to watch going back.
Yeah, you know what? Can we get the cam on us for a second while we talk about this? We're going to get back to this, but Mike was like, hey, I'm excited to talk about Hard Knocks. And I was like, hey, I tried to watch it with my wife and I started crying because I love football so much. I love the Bears so much. And it's kind of like watching an ex-girlfriend that got hotter and married up. You know what I'm saying? That's the Bears. And they've got a beautiful situation right now, brand new facility. The first thing I said is these bastards didn't even have to go to training camp. They're right there at their facility. We used to go to Bourbonnais, Illinois, Kankakee. Shout out to Bourbonnais. Shout out to TJ's, our favorite watering hole. But at the end of the day, the Hard Knocks thing is really cool. It's clear to me that these guys have grown together through this media firestorm in Chicago since Caleb Williams came. But it's hard for me to watch, man. It's really hard for me to watch. And I'm sure there's a lot of players at home that enjoy Hard Knocks. But then there's a lot of players like myself who it hits a little too close to home, especially being that it's the Bears. I would say 99% of guys in the National Football League don't exit on their own accord. And, yeah, that's where I'm at. I haven't watched it yet. I will watch it, I'm sure. But I'm getting ready to watch the Bears. And we're going to talk Bears-Titans here in a second.
It honestly made me, the ending scene made me nostalgic. I lived in Chicago for 1 year. It made me nostalgic for Chicago. But it was a fun season. And it's fun because this Bears team is fun for the first time since, 2018?
What did you learn about the team that you haven't learned from film?
I mean, you never learn anything from Hard Knocks besides personalities.
Personalities, though. Yeah. Any personalities stand out to you?
I liked Romadidze. I think he
seems like a chill dude.
Yeah. Met him when we went up there for training camp, and I'm like, that's what it takes. That guy's got star written all over him. And that's why the Bears get a tick mark for receivers. But at quarterback, I gave it to the Tennessee Titans.
This is brutally illegal.
Because he is still a rookie. Caleb Williams is still a rookie in his very first NFL start.
I get it. Rookies
drafted number 1 overall.
They don't win.
In their very first NFL start, if they start week 1, are 0-15 since 2005.
No, what happened in 2004? Who was it in 2004?
It was Eli, but he didn't. No, it wasn't Eli. It was Eli, and he didn't start.
We'll get it. We got Debo in the back in his LaShawn McCoy jersey. He'll dig that up. His team doesn't play for another 12 hours. So
Head coach, I did toss up. It's when you have Brian Callahan, first-year head coach. Hard to say there, and it's obviously not like Matt Eberflus has shown much to like really say he's definitely the better side in this one. Receivers, though, I'm giving to the Bears. Backfield, I'm giving to the Bears after they lose Derrick Henry in Tennessee. Tony Pollard hasn't been the same since he tore his ACL. Though I like Tajay Sharp, so that one closer than maybe people might know just because he is a talented dude. Offensive line, I'm giving to the Bears. That, to me, is easily the biggest differential in this one. Bears have one of the better O-lines in the NFL. Titans have massive question marks with some youngsters starting at tackle position. We do have one of the best offensive line coaches in Bill Callahan.
I was going to say.
So we'll see how they do develop. Defensive line, Titans, easy in this one. But linebackers, secondary, both easily go to the Chicago Bears. So on the whole, Bears have the better roster. But I am worried about Caleb in his very first NFL start.
I'd argue you gave the rubber match to the head coaches. I'd say this: you're talking about rookies. Caleb Williams is a rookie, so I'll give you the give it to Levis thing. But Matt Eberflus, he earned his spot to be the head coach in Chicago with a quarterback who was not performing in Justin Fields. He had that defense, which is his group. The defense is the reason that this team was so sought after at the end of the year and played so well and kept them in football games. I'm going to give the tick to the head coach, Matt Eberflus. I like your breakdown there. I do. And I think that the defensive line stuff, and we're going to talk about this matchup here shortly with the Bears O-line and that Tennessee D-line, but you got to think about the young rushers in Chicago and also Montez Sweat. It's a styles make fights type of game. What are the tackles going to do to respond against the rushers from Chicago and the interior offensive line of the Chicago Bears taking on the Titans?
Yeah, I do think that, to go back, the Titans offense tackles is like where this game gets decided. Does Bill Callahan, offensive line coach, does he have them up to snuff?
Does he have a plan?
Does he have a plan for them? Because you don't want Nicholas Petit-Frere going one-on-one against Montez Sweat. I mean, it's not going to end well, flat out. It won't. So to limit that as much as possible to what they can do offensively. And it's not like, though, Brian Callahan has had to deal with the best offensive lines ever in Cincinnati, right? Like, he's had to scheme around those sorts of things. You saw in the preseason where Will Levis was on a screen play action tear. I think that's all he did in the 2 preseason games he showed up in. So from that perspective, I think
they're like, how do we utilize offensive tackles that don't block, incorporate plays where they pretend to block the end?
Exactly. Just as many of those as possible. And I think you'll see that. And that's why I think this game, while 4.5 points, I think it ends up closer than that, just because it's one's a rookie quarterback and the other one's really going.
It'll be a 2-minute drive for sure. It'll be a 2-minute drive and a field goal either way.
So I'm not sure I have a hard take on anyone who's going to win this, but I think 4.5 is too much for me.
I think if I'm going to be honest with the Bears fans for a second, I'll say this: yes, we have an awesome team. We have a fun team. We woke up excited this morning and this week, this whole offseason because of what we have in front of us, but when it comes time for game day, I want you to understand that football is a very hard game and they get paid too. And when Caleb Williams is trying to settle in as a rookie quarterback in these first few drives, remember they were 3 and out in the last time we saw Caleb Williams before he went and put on that highlight clinic. So things could start slow. Pay attention to the interior of that offensive line going against the interior of that Tennessee Titans D-line. Jeffrey Simmons is as good as anybody. He's not quite Chris Jones, but he is a bully. He's a bull in a china shop. And for Caleb Williams, it's going to be front and center in his vision. He's going to have that dude breathing down his neck the whole day. It's going to be, how are we going to get off the spot and maintain our eyes down the field? How are we going to remain confident and comfortable? And if they do get an opportunity to throw 3 hands on Jeffrey Simmons or 4 hands, then I need to see Caleb Williams look comfortable when he does have a clean dish, because there's going to be plays where he breaks through Jeffrey and there's going to be plays where he doesn't. And I don't want Caleb's reaction on the play that he broke through to bleed into the one where it's a clean pocket, because that'll provide this offense a lot of spark. You'll get to see Adunze down the field. You'll get to see Keenan Allen running the option routes. You'll get to see DJ Moore bullying guys and just being an absolute freak show. That's what I can't wait to see. Do they have a plan up front for this Tennessee interior D-line?
Either way, I think it's just an awesome litmus test for Caleb Williams and the Bears, right? Like, it's now, obviously guys can improve throughout the season, but if Caleb Williams comes out and looks good against this defense, because it's a solid defense, and it's solid in the ways that are tough for a rookie quarterback, in that they can get interior pressure. And that's something that he really struggled with at USC. I was at the Notre Dame game last year where they were getting interior pressure, and he just went in the tank. That's something that the Tennessee Titans can provide. And they can press on the outside. They have physical corners that can disrupt timing. How is he going to deal with that as well? Because the biggest thing we wanted to see from him coming from USC was getting past his first read on time. And so those two things, if he's hot in this game, expect a big year from this Bears team. If he struggles, I'm not writing him off by any means.
He's a rookie. Remember that.
He's a rookie.
Do not boo, Bears fans. Do not boo. I've seen it one too many times. Okay, do not boo this kid. This is your Mandalorian baby. Okay, like take care of the Mando baby. And for the Bears defense, all these playmakers, in the front seven and then on the back end. What does Will Levis like to do? He likes to throw that ball downtown Julie Brown, right?
He'll throw it even when he's not supposed to.
So when you're throwing downtown Julie Brown, you got to pat the ball a little bit back there, and you got to let the play develop. Eberflus, his defensive staff, they like to do these external pressures. They like to bring guys from the second level and down. And
Kyler Gordon's as good as it gets.
Kyler Gordon is going to be all over the football field against the Tennessee Titans. Watch it here. He's obviously a big fan of him. We know him in Chicago, but yeah, that's going to be the tail of the tape. Late ad pressures, so the offensive line, we see 4 down linemen. We make our protection. Boom, boom, boom. Center's going to go left. Guard and tackle are on the end in the 3 technique. Okay, baby, this is vanilla. Blah, 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 blah. Kyler Gordon. That's going to be what we're going to see. The late ad pressures, maybe some simulated pressures. It'll be fun to watch.
Fun to watch for sure. I assume you're going Bears.
I'm going Bears.
He's going Bears. All right. Steelers at Falcons. The
line is stinky, but I'm going Bears.
The Art Smith revenge game, as it were. Heading back to Atlanta. Kirk Cousins' debut. A lot of good storylines for this one. Falcons are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is set at 42.5. Not expecting a ton of points in this one. Maybe that being more the Steelers side, not expecting those from. I give the advantage of head coach, obviously, to the Steelers, but Raheem Morris, I thought, was a great hire. We'll see how he does. That's where the positives end, though, for the Steelers, at least on the offense side of the ball. Quarterback, receivers, backfield, offensive line. I'm giving them all to the Falcons. I think comfortably at quarterback and O-line. Backfield is more of a fight, but it's Bijan Robinson. Let's get serious here. Receivers, much more of a fight, especially, obviously, Rondale Moore out for the season. Darnell Mooney and Drake London.
They're going to love Darnell Mooney in Atlanta.
Kyle Pitts has been hampering a hamstring. I do think Darnell Mooney is going to fit in great in that offense. Steelers, outside of George Pickens, not a lot, but George Pickens, I think, is going to have a monster season. Flip to the defense side of the ball. I go D-line linebackers to the Steelers in this one, whereas I give the secondary edge to the Falcons. That one's close, though. I really like what I saw from Joey Porter Jr. as a rookie. Minkah Fitzpatrick, obviously one of the best in the NFL at safety. Falcons got no slouch at safety themselves, though, in Jesse Bates. Picked up Justin Simmons. A.J. Terrell on the outside. I'm going to give a slight edge to the Falcons that one.
My only question is Kirk Cousins healthy, dude? Is Kirk Cousins healthy? And if Michael Penix is the starting quarterback, do you still give them the edge at quarterback?
No. Not
because of the rookie.
But I don't think it's like off limits. That if he starts, I think they could still win. Penix was.
Dude, I think he would go out there and just close his eyes and throw strikes. Yeah. That's what Penix does. He just delivers the ball in stride.
He's played 6 years in college. Like he played forever.
Relatable.
There you go.
2 sports, 6 years, 1 detox. And here we are at the Pushing the Pile podcast. I mean, we're talking about all the games. So if you're in the chat, if you just got in here, make sure to hit us up in there. You can interact. Obviously, Mike's reading the chat, and we can answer any of your questions. But for the Steelers, which version of Russell Wilson are we going to see? Are we going to see the version of Russell Wilson that seems as if he's being groomed to run for president? Is he going to have all the right things to say? Or is he going to be that young baller that's out there making plays happen? Is he going to be able to rely on his legs to get out of some issues when the offensive line isn't holding up? Is he going to have the proper relationship with George Pickens where he can go up and talk to him about the things he saw in coverage after a drive, which, this is such an important thing, the communication between the receiver and the quarterback. And sometimes the messaging is good, but the delivery is bad. I hope Russell Wilson finds a really good delivery because, to your point, George Pickens can put on an absolute clinic for the Steelers offense if those two can be on the same page.
Yeah, I do worry, though, about the Steelers offensive line. Just too much youth, whether it's Troy Fautanu, who's also been banged up. at right tackle, Zach Frazier at center, left tackle, Broderick Jones. Maybe we'll see how they end up shaking out that offensive line. But those are 3 guys within the first 2 seasons in the NFL. And it's not like it's just tough. It's not like the Falcons have this elite defensive line.
Not a lot of world beaters. And people don't understand how good that Falcons O-line is.
But the Falcons
O-line is a bunch of junkyard dogs, bro.
I think this one's one of my favorites of the weekend. Falcons at home. That dome is difficult to play in, especially with the energy right now around this Falcons team. I think that's going to be a tough atmosphere the Steelers to go into. And I just don't think that Steelers have the horses offensively, right? When Russ is your starting QB, when your receiving core is just George Pickens, when your running back room is solid, but they're behind an offensive line that is not, I don't see them keeping up. I
think the X factor is the Atlanta Falcons fans. You know what I'm saying? These fans have taken a beating since 28-3.
I was there in 2010, divisional round, Packers-Falcons is when the Packers went to the Super Bowl. That was the loudest stadium I've been to in my life. When they were playing All I Do Is Win, that was back when that was a hot top
Big
track.
song.
It was every single big play. All you hear, all I do is win. It just comes over the loudspeakers, and the place turned into
it's a party.
Bonanza.
It's a party. And when I think about the Steelers and their fan base, it is definitely not a party. It's like a morning anonymous meeting.
They're like defensive right now.
They need a support. They need a support group is what they need in Pittsburgh. And for Atlanta, they're celebrating all this influx of talent, obviously defensively. And if Kirk Cousins is healthy, they have every reason to celebrate. And they can give him that safe, that fertile ground to which he can take on the postseason potentially this year and shut up all the naysayers about Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think we both like Atlanta in that one. All right, next game, Jags traveling to Miami down here to face the Dolphins. The Florida battle of Florida men. Dolphins 3.5-point favorites in this one. We're expecting some points. 48.5 is the over-under, one of the highest of the weekend. Few injuries of note, though. Jalen Phillips will be on a snap count. Odell Beckham, Bradley Chubb, Isaiah Wynn all started their seasons on PUP, so don't expect any of them out there because they won't be. Aaron Brewer, the center, just started practicing this week for the Dolphins. Jalen Ramsey, hamstring, didn't practice on Wednesday. So a lot of Dolphins.
This scares me, okay?
A lot of Dolphins injuries for a team that's favored against the Jags with Trevor Lawrence looking great. So in my tail of the tape, I give the head coach nod to the Dolphins, even if the Jaguars do have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson. But I'm giving the quarterback nod to the Jaguars here and Trevor Lawrence, even if the stats don't bear it out. But the stats don't bear it out because I'm easily giving the receivers nod and the backfield nod to the Miami Dolphins. The sheer speed they have on this roster makes your head spin at times.
Tyreek and Jalen got some stuff going on physically as well. So, I mean, I'd like to see what this offense looks like with these guys not at 100%. Obviously, Tyreek at 70% is going to be better than 100% of the league. But at the end of the day, when you got both guys hampered a little bit, interesting to see.
The injury, if I had an injury tail of the tape, it's like wholly on the Jags. One of the biggest of the weekend in terms of who's healthy and who's not, team versus team. Line of scrimmage, though, I'm giving the battle to the Jaguars along the offensive line and along the defensive line. Linebackers giving to the Jags as well. They have one of the better linebacker duos in the NFL. And then secondary, though, I got to go back to the Dolphins. No slouch of a secondary there in Jacksonville. But this Dolphins secondary, that's assuming, obviously, that Jalen Ramsey does play. It's still getting the nod because him, Javon Holland, Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, and then low-key one of the better slot corners in the NFL, and Kader Kohu. That's a better secondary. So
it's a cool name, too.
Sick name. Darth Kader.
Darth Kader. I like that, Mike. I like nicknames. Big nickname guy. I think the story is this. When I think about the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think about a team with a really good head coach, as you said, a Super Bowl winning head coach, and I think about this can do anything prospect that is Trevor Lawrence, who, in my opinion, in my mind, is still a prospect. Like, he's still developing. He's still becoming confident in the National Football League. Those poor guys had to go to Kansas City and play. That's really the only thing that stops the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, yeah, we can say they don't have Super Bowls. They haven't been in the conference championship or the Super Bowl, but they have to go to Kansas City every time. It's brutal. So, I mean, I want to think about this team in a vacuum and what their abilities are and what they can do in 2024. I think it's exciting. I think it would be a real statement game for Jacksonville to go down and beat Miami. Obviously not a division game, but, it's that panhandle, that Florida man battle. And Jacksonville's damn near South Georgia. So really it's South Georgia versus South Florida here.
I just said it in the chat. Jaguars are probably the one team where I just have no clue.
Yep.
What to make of them this year.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of guys who, if they take massive next steps, one being Trevor Lawrence, one being Trayvon Walker, right? That one being Devin Lloyd at linebacker, one being right tackle Anton Harrison, who was a first rounder a year ago. Like if those guys turn it on, because they're at valuable positions, right? Tackle, quarterback,
just take the next expected step as a good player.
Yes. All of a sudden we're talking like win the South, right? But what I saw down the stretch last year from this team was a team that had given it up flat out. Like, and they shouldn't have. They were still in the mix and just didn't have it. And some of that was Trevor Lawrence and that injury that he kind of played through all year that no one really didn't want to be on injury reports about. But obviously people thought he was going to be out for the season when it happened and then wasn't. So I don't know. I do think in this one, though, with everything banged up in Miami, with the losses they've had along both lines of scrimmage, this is when I'd want to catch them. And while I still think the Dolphins win the game, I would not touch this line at 3.5 points.
I'm picking the Jags.
Picking the Jags. I'm
picking the Jags.
Yeah.
I like Dougie P. I like Trevor Lawrence. I really feel like he has been underrated and disrespected a little bit in the last few years. He had a really rough go at it his rookie year, and he's played some good football since then. I think this year he can rewrite his chapter.
I love it.
Jags.
Rewrite it. All right, Patriots at Bengals. A little bit of a laugher. I think this is the biggest line of the weekend. Bengals 7.5-point favorites over the Patriots. 40.5 points is the over-under. And the Patriots have some injuries themselves, whether it's Cole Strange, who's on PUP, Sidney So, who missed practice on Wednesday along the offensive line. Not that they could afford to lose those guys in the first place, but not good. Obviously, and Vidarian Lowe, their left tackle, has an oblique strain as well. Christian Barmore started the season on the NFI list. He has blood clots. Shout prayers out to him.
Jeez.
That's terrible. That's what Trey Smith dealt with a lot of his career. Those can be, unfortunately, career-ending. So hopefully he gets those dealt with. But their best pass rusher on the interior on the other side of the ball, not going to be playing. Jamar Chase back at practice. So we'll see, but I'm guessing he's going to be on a pitch count. They usually are early on in the season when that happens. So the tail of the tape, head coach, I probably should have given it to the Bengals here and Zach Taylor. But again, it's a first-year head coach. We have no clue what to make of in that. Quarterbacks, receivers, obvious here. Bengals. I'm going to give the slight nod to the Patriots for the offensive backfield, running back position. Ramondre Stevenson, I'd probably rather have him than what the Bengals are throwing out in Zach Moss, Chase Brown. That one's obviously not too impactful. What is impactful is the offensive line, where the Bengals look like they have the best of the Joe Burrow era, where the Patriots have probably the worst offensive line in the NFL right now. Defensive line, giving it to the Bengals as well. Again, when you lose Matthew Judon, Christian Barmore, your two best defensive linemen from a year ago. I like what Keon White has as a second-year player as a possible breakout, but that's not enough to give them the nod. Linebackers go to the Bengals as well, but the Patriots secondary still looks like it could be one of the best in the NFL. So they have a good shot of slowing down this Bengals team. I do kind of like the under in this one, 40.5 points. I think it'll be, I mean, it's a super low number, but I think it will be very low.
Spread is not big enough, and the total is a little too high.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
I agree. I think it's like this game ends up 20-3. Something like that, 20-6. I just don't see the Patriots moving the ball whatsoever. But then I also think with Jamar Chase, again, probably on a pitch count.
It'll be a Middle Ages offense.
That it'll just kind of be in the Bengals starting out slow as can be every single year. I think you just see a low scoring.
You couldn't write it up any better for a slow starting team than to play the New England Patriots at home.
Hard to start too slow.
With Jamar Chase on a pitch count.
Yeah. So that one, not too much.
The Bengals.
To get into here. And that one, but I think we both are going Bengals.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Texans at Colts. One of the two home dogs playing this weekend. Indianapolis, a 2.5-point dog. The over-under 48.5 points. So we're expecting some fireworks from this one. Head coach, these were the two best rookie head coaches a year ago. So I cannot break this tie for you, whether it's DeMeco Ryans, Shane Steichen. Which one you would pick is basically like, do you want offense? Do you want defense? So give that one a wash. Tie that one. Quarterback, I got to give it to C.J. Stroud. That one's obvious. Receivers, this may be controversial, but I have this one a wash as well. Now, Josh Downs has been hampered with an ankle injury. If he's out, I'm giving it to the Texans. But this Colts receiving core, I think, is one of the most underrated in the NFL. Josh Downs was electric as a rookie, just didn't have someone to get him the ball consistently. I love what I saw from Adonai Mitchell. I think that has superstar potential, this Colts receiving core, with Michael Pittman obviously as your number one, but he may even be overtaken as the number one in this offense as the season goes on.
He's a freak show.
That's how good those two youngsters are. Backfield, Joe Mixon versus Jonathan Taylor, another tight one. Give me Jonathan Taylor, though, and also I'm kind of including some
can't
running
wait to see
quarterbacks
him,
in this
dude.
one. I got to give Anthony Richardson his due as a backfield runner. He's impactful in the running game as well. O-line, give me the Colts, one of the best O-lines in the NFL, but the Texans aren't too far behind. This one is so tight. It has so many matchups. I just punted on D-line and linebackers.
Yep.
I think they're that close at both of those. I think it's a toss-up, but the one where it's really not a toss-up and why I think I'm leaning Texans in this one, even as road favorites, is the secondary. They just have a nasty secondary, whether it's Jalen Petrie, whether it's Derek Stingley Jr. I think they're going to make life difficult on this Colts receiving core. And the Colts sending out 2 second-year guys, a 7th rounder and a 2nd rounder from a year ago. Give me the Texans.
I just think about what they probably emphasize in Coach Ryan's building. And I know like that suffocating defense is part of it. And it starts on the back end there with not giving any separation and having guys rallying to the ball, tackling well, creating turnovers. The real question I have is Anthony Richardson ready to step up and be the guy that he is being asked to be? All the physical tools are there. He's obviously a great dude, but at the end of the day, it's a bottom line business. Are you going to go out there, you're going to stay healthy, you're going to deliver the ball on time? And to your point about those Colts receivers, they're going to do a good job of making him comfortable and giving him good targets. But then the same thing I'm talking about, this Texas defense, that's going to be the stalemate there. Where's the rubber going to break there? And for CJ Stroud and the Texans, you've heard all offseason long about Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen and about how these boys in Indianapolis are pretty damn good and that O-line's tough and they got receivers. At the end of the day, this is a mano-a-mano matchup, and I know CJ Stroud's getting up for this thing because, look, I mean, you go to Indianapolis, you get an opportunity to go on the road, beat a division opponent, beat another young quarterback who's going to be a star in this league. That pays dividends, and that bleeds into the rest of your season. How you start is really important in the National Football League. I know there's a lot more games, but C.J. Stroud is probably in a 1-week playoff mentality here against the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Richardson's not a rookie, but when you've played as little football as he has, you expect rookie moments out of him still.
You know, they still consider you a rookie until you're 1 season and 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what the vets used to say.
Okay.
You're still a rookie until week 4 in your second year.
Interesting. But it's also like, even just look at Jordan Love, who the first 8 games of last year was not the Jordan Love of the last 8 games.
Yep.
Right? Like it's just once you get there, and he had the full offseason, whatever, but he still needs the reps to get up to speed, where CJ Stroud, the reps were there. The big-time plays were there. There's no question in my mind. So, yeah, I'm leaning Texans on this one. I don't love road faves, but it's only 2.5 points.
You know
it's
what?
Just basically.
I think Shane Steichen is going to pound the rock. I think we're going to see a couple balls down the field from Anthony Richardson that seem like they were shot out of a cannon, and it's going to be when guys are on their toes. That secondary is going to be up on their toes trying to fill their run responsibilities. Next thing you know, somebody's streaking across the field. I think this one could be close. I'm going to take the Colts in this game.
There you go. Though there is the one matchup that really does favor the Indianapolis Colts, and it's the defensive tackles for the Texans, Mario Edwards, Foley Fatukasi, versus the interior for that Colts offensive line, and just running it up the gut on this team.
Yep.
They could do that.
Take the weapons away.
They could truly
take their weapons
all
away
game long if they wanted to, and very well may, given what they have offensively. So I'm not going to bet this one.
Do I firmly believe in my Colts pick? No. Yeah. But this is the team out of all the teams in the National Football. Well, you know what? Except for the Bears, this is the team that I can't wait to watch. It's the Indianapolis Colts, because they have the ability, they have the talent in that building to be a friggin' nightmare matchup-wise every single week. So they have so much variability from their floor to their ceiling this year. I can't wait to see which team shows up week 1 and then what that team looks like at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, we're going to do our tiers of games on Mondays in terms of the best games we saw from the weekend. That's a tier 1 matchup.
Oh, yeah.
That one's like, a top 3 game I want to watch.
Oh, yeah. This heavyweight showdown.
All right, next up, Vikings at Giants. The other home dog on the weekend. Giants 1.5-point dogs at home against the Vikings. 41.5 is the over-under. Not expecting a ton of fireworks, unsurprisingly. I'm going to give the head coaching matchup to the Minnesota Vikings in this one. Quarterback matchup, Sam Darnold versus Daniel Jones. I pick neither.
Ready, fight.
Neither. We're picking neither, so no one has the advantage there. But the receivers, the running back room with Aaron Jones, and the offensive line with that elite tackle duo in Minnesota, they get all 3 of those. I mean, those are not even close, any of those matchups, in my opinion. Defensive line, though, is also not even close. This Giants defensive line now has some real teeth. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. I think the Dexter Lawrence matchup is the one where if I'm looking anywhere, Dexter Lawrence versus that Vikings interior, he's going to feast. That one's going to be an absolute beatdown.
Well, they're going to slide to him every time because those tackles can go man. Those tackles are what we would call money, which means man on man. So they can handle interior 3 versus 2. How are you going to allocate your resources? Which way we're going to put this center to help our guards?
Linebackers, I'm going to give the slight nod to the Giants, but I like what the Vikings have there. It's really a close one. Secondary, though, that's where I worry about this Giants team. They just had to sign Adoree Jackson off the street to come in and start now. The Vikings have the better secondary there. Love Cam Bynum and his versatility. Obviously, adding Stephon Gilmore as well. That's a better side of the ball. I think I'm leaning Giants, though. They're at home. They've been hated on a lot this offseason.
So much hate.
But their defensive line, and again, specifically Dexter Lawrence, and what they can do bringing pressure and blitzes up the middle against this weakness that is for the Vikings, the interior offensive line, I just like that side a little bit better.
You know, you gotta lean on the strength of your units, and whichever unit you have that you feel like is your strongest. In this case, it's the Giants' defensive front. You got to go out there and weaponize it, man. You got to make Sam Darnold feel it, because people are talking about Daniel Jones is trying to find his groove and find his confidence back. Well, Sam Darnold's trying to get back on the bike as a starting quarterback. At the end of the day, both of these quarterbacks are going through something. You know, I'm going through something. What does Kendrick say? I'm going through something. Well, both these quarterbacks are going through something. Daniel Jones got a beard. He's trying to figure out how to incorporate this new freak show wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. And obviously, Sam Darnold just stepped into a Ferrari in Minnesota, and he's trying to figure out how to clutch the thing and get it into gear. So week 1, I'm thinking the Giants, I really want to see Daniel Jones turn over a new leaf. I want to see what the offense looks like with Malik Neighbors. Are they going to be able to get him the football? And to your point, it's all going to be about stopping that rush, making these guys feel comfortable.
Yeah, I don't have a strong take on this one, though. I mean, anytime you're betting.
It's a what do you want to see game? What do you want to see? Do you want to see Sam Darnold play well or Daniel Jones play well, or both? A shootout.
I would like to see Daniel Jones play well. I think that would just be a funny storyline.
It would be cool.
Sam Darnold, even if he lights it up, no one's gonna be believing just yet. Right?
No, let's say you're in a Ferrari.
He's got a long way to go. We've been fooled before. So it would be fun if they went 41.5 to the over/under. If we just had like a 30-27 game, that's the ideal outcome if you're a fan.
Like Chargers Chiefs, just like start lighting it up.
Yeah, that would be ideal. All right, Panthers at Saints.
Oh boy.
Saints 3.5-point favorites only. We ran this game back week 17 last year. That would have been like a 9.5-point line. 41.5 is the over/under in this one. Some injuries to maybe think about. Miles Sanders, running back for the Panthers, has been limited with a finger injury. Marshawn Lattimore with a hip injury. That would probably be the biggest injury in this game if he cannot go. Tail of the tape here, though. Head coach, give it a wash.
Yeah,
Dave Canales.
Yeah.
If I had to take one right now, I'd go with Dave Canales. But again, he's first-year head coach, first game. No clue what you're going to get there. Saints, I give them the quarterback, but it's not like I am tied to this. Like, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if Bryce Young just came out and trounced this defense. You know, like if he turned into the guy, that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Receivers, though, got to give it to the Saints. I love the Saints receiving core. If they just had a guy to get it to them, yes. Backfield, Alvin Kamara versus what the Panthers have until Jonathan Brooks comes back. Got to give it to the Saints. Offensive line, though, defensive line, though, that's where the Carolina Panthers can win.
Those are important.
That's where they can win this game. New look Panthers offensive line, but should be very, very much improved. A little bit of a new look defensive line as well, but still I'd give them the nod over the New Orleans Saints after adding Jadeveon Clowney to that mix. The Panthers did. Linebackers and secondary, the back seven, I'm giving it to the New Orleans Saints. But this one, I kind of like the Panther side on this one. Maybe it's just because I've been hating on the Saints all offseason and I'm overreacting a little bit too much. But 3.5 points, I know they're at home. I just think the Panthers have a different energy this year, and you'll see it on the football field Sunday.
Yeah, it starts with their head coach. And, you know, I have the luxury of working with some really, really great minds outside of working with you. Jonathan Jones, one of which from that other pregame show in the NFL Today, he's the insider. Well, he gets to go to all these places, and he gets to be around these coaches he was talking to me about the infectious energy that Dave Canales has. And he's like that one buddy you have where if you're going out, we got to bring Johnny, because Johnny is just, every time we have him, it's a lot of fun. We all feel like we're having the times of our lives. And I feel like Dave Canales can really instill that in this football team. And they understand that they're at the bottom of the pecking order, the bottom of the totem pole, as it were, in power rankings and
nothing to lose,
and all these conversations. And I think that's really the messaging. It's like, Bryce, we can't get any worse.
Let it rip.
Let's go have some fun and let it rip. But my only issue is this. New Orleans is a very, very tough place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Historically speaking, you go to New Orleans and good things do not happen when you play at the Saints. So for the Carolina Panthers, it'll prove a lot to me if he is able to go on the road and get a W or keep this thing really close. And for the Saints, it's how we're going to be able to protect Derek Carr. A lot of these, I guess, concepts that you're going to be incorporating with that receiving core will take some time in terms of protection. And I just don't trust this offensive line to hold up in protection against NFL caliber rushers. And, you know, I could be mistaken. I may stand corrected in a few weeks, but at the end of the day, Derek Carr's got to feel comfortable. He can't see ghosts out there. If I'm Dennis Allen, you know, I got to find a way to have my quarterback comfortable. And right now with their tackle situation, obviously the left tackle is a rookie first rounder. He could be great. The right tackle gives me a little bit of concern. And that's going to be where Derek Carr's vision is. It's going to be on that right tackle spot, Trevor Penning. And, you know, people talk about the blind side all the time being the most important. But in my opinion, and you and I have had this conversation, you think the left side is more important because that's where turnovers come from.
That's where turnovers come from, yes.
And when you presented that to me, I said, aha, that makes sense. But in my opinion, equally as important is the quarterback's field of vision. And that field of vision is going to be on the right side. Got to find a plan to hold up on the right side to keep Derek Carr comfortable, to be able to deliver the balls that are vintage Derek Carr down the field.
Yeah, and the good news is it's not like the Panthers are world beaters off the edge. It's Jadeveon Clowney and then guys. So they have a chance of holding up in this game. But you said Talia could be a guy. What I saw in the preseason was worrisome. It was like, I don't know. And
it's the big question mark there.
Flipping sides as a rookie is just, it's tough. It's easier said than done. And they flip both sides of their tackles. They flip Penning to the right. They flip Bulaga to the left.
It's one of the most head-scratching decisions ever is to flip a guy. It's like
two guys.
Like that's what I'm saying. You flip one guy, you got to flip the other guy.
Yeah.
Josh Sitton came to the Chicago Bears, and Dow Loggins, our offensive coordinator, was like, okay, Josh is going to play right guard. You're going to play left guard. And me and Josh looked at each other. We were like, no, man. What are you kidding me? Needless to say, I played right guard. Josh played left. That's how I think it should be. Keep them where they're at.
I agree. Have to agree. And you leaning Saints or you leaning Panthers?
I'm going to be leaning Saints. It's, you know, in New Orleans. It's in New Orleans, and we can't forget about the talent on the Saints.
I like Panthers. I'm just a Bryce Young, like, home.
I want to see Bryce Young do well.
I can't give up. He could play like absolute cheeks this year, and I would be like, year 3 this year.
They had C.J. Stroud do a message to Bryce Young. Do you remember this at the end of the year? He was essentially like, hey, man, just keep your head up.
They did?
Yeah. Ugh. And when I saw that, I was like, God, I want Bryce Young to do well because I can't stand to see this stuff. I can't see it anymore.
Oh, dude, that's so bad. All right, Cardinals at Bills. Next one on the docket here. Bills 6.5-point favorites. 48.5 points is the over-under in this one. No Darius Robinson on the defensive line. First-round pick for the Cardinals. No Matt Milano, obviously. Biceps tear. He's on the IR. To return, both of those guys are. But Milano's could be a lot longer than Darius Robinson is. Head coach, got to give it to Sean McDermott in this one. Quarterback, got to give it to Josh Allen. Receivers, though, give me the Cardinals receiving core, whether it's Trey McBride at tight end, whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr., whether it's Michael Wilson. I love what they've built there in that Cardinals receiving room. Backfield, I think James Cook is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I have to give it to them. Offensive line, I called a wash. You may disagree with this. I really like the Bills, but I did not like what I saw from Osiris Torrance this preseason, the right guard there, youngster that they drafted a year ago. I think there could be holes up front. Now, Josh Allen, obviously, paper maches over holes better than any quarterback in the NFL. But I just do think if you're taking piece by piece on these two offensive lines, I think they're pretty evenly matched. Defensive line, I gave this one to the Bills. That's a misstep there. It is not the Cardinals in this one. Linebackers, another position where I went wash. I think it's a weak spot for both these teams. I've had to pick maybe a little bit more Cardinals. But again, secondary, though, is where this Cardinals team worries me. Bills worry me too, flat out. These are two of the worst secondaries in the NFL, in my opinion, or not worst, but like two lower end secondaries in the NFL.
Two teams that are lacking in the secondary.
That's why you get a 48.5-point over-under in this one. So I don't have a great take on this. I do think the Cardinals are much better this year, but they're traveling about as far away as you can go in the United States from Arizona, and Bills are still a tough team regardless.
Let's put on your defensive coordinator hat for a second. You got Kyler Murray on the other sideline. What's your rush plan? You got to run a contained rush, right? You got to have
contained
rush responsibilities. You got to have guys that are keyed into the dangers of when I do rip underneath. Where's that quarterback going to go outside?
And the Bills they're not fans of that. They attack.
They're not fans of that. They've got guys who want to win, and they've got guys who want to prove themselves to be the Hall of Famers that they are. You know what I'm saying? So I think the question is, are we going to see a smart rush plan from the Buffalo Bills? Because Kyler Murray's healthy. Kyler Murray's got weapons, to your point. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., these guys are going to be able to make plays, and Kyler Murray often runs to throw the football. He's escaping to get a different viewpoint, different launch point. What is the Bills' rush plan against this? Because we know that if the Cardinals are dangerous this year and they are getting wins, it's going to be on the back of Kyler Murray's athleticism, playmaking ability, and ability to deliver the ball to his receivers down the field after that rush gets muddied. So we got to corral him. Got to throw the fences around the cattle. You know what I'm saying? Can't have a bad rush plan.
I think he's going to make plays. I mean, I think it's going to be high.
You can't stop it.
I think the 48.5 is very fair, and if I had to go one way or the other, I think it goes over. I think this game turns to big time points, but when that's the case, I lean the better quarterback. And so is it 6.5?
Track meet, mistakes will be made.
I think they probably cover the 6.5. Just because I think the Bills, this is a great matchup for them to get Josh Allen and this new receiving core on track quickly. So I like over. I like Bills side.
I like both of those as well.
All right, we'll get to the Raiders-Chargers here in just a second, but first, take a quick little break.
My first hot take of the year.
When Sunday football isn't enough,
dislike that take.
Great take.
that other pregame show will put you over the top.
I'm all in. Let's go viral here.
Every Sunday, all the insight you need on CBS Sports Network.
Raiders at Chargers in LA. Only a 3-point favorite for Los Angeles Chargers, and only a 40.5-point over-under in this one. Not expecting too many fireworks. Probably an easy call there, given the head coaches involved and the defenses they are known for, Antonio Pierce and Jim Harbaugh, and just what these offenses are throwing out there. I got to give a lot of the tick marks, though, to the Chargers in this one, whether it's head coach, whether it's quarterback, whether it's the running back room there, whether it's the offensive line. The one where the Raiders do get it is this receiving core. Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Chargers, obviously the biggest question mark receiving core in the NFL, with Josh Palmer possibly their number one wide receiver. Defensive line, I'm giving it to the Raiders as well. Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, no slouches themselves, but this one I think firmly goes to the Raiders. Linebackers and secondary, though, Chargers, easy nods here. Raiders secondary really is an issue. This is one of my favorite lines of the whole week. 3 points for the Chargers. I mean, these are probably two of the farthest away teams in the power rankings of anyone that I had this week. I had the Chargers, so I put them just outside my top 10, whereas I put the Raiders in the bottom 5. That's only 3 points at home, which is basically just a home field advantage. I know it's a week 1, and I know it's a conference divisional game.
Throw the book out the window, buddy. This is Raiders-Chargers.
Chargers are the better side.
These are Raiders-Chargers, and I do agree with you. The Chargers are the better side, and we like to weigh this thing based on the quarterbacks most of the time. That can tip the scales. And with Justin Herbert, he'll tip the scale against mostly anybody in the National Football League. I cannot wait to see what Jim Harbaugh has in store for this offense. How is he going to use the athleticism of Justin Herbert, his strengths to get on the edge and deliver the ball down the field? I mean, it doesn't matter who's a receiver. We know the ball is going to be in the area of this receiver's hands, whether it's Josh Palmer. But at the end of the day, it's Jim Harbaugh ass-kicking approach up front and inviting the Las Vegas Raiders to a street fight, which, the Raiders hang their hat on being these street fighters, rough and tumble group. And they are, especially up front. Jim Harbaugh wants to find out how rough and tumble and how tough they are. Look, the quarterback situation in Las Vegas is one that's left me scratching my head for a while because they had options, and they ended up with Gardner Minshew. I like Gardner Minshew. I don't love him. I think he's a great QB2 in this league, but you cannot win, particularly in the AFC West, without a stud at quarterback. And they've got one in Los Angeles, and they do not in Las Vegas.
That's the thing. That's just like the biggest thing. It's like that is such a mismatch, those two. And then also, I think offensively, the offensive line for this Chargers team is not the offensive lines of old. This offensive line can kick some butt up front with the additions of Joe Alt, Zion Johnson now in year 3, Rashawn Slater healthy. Like, they are built to do what Greg Roman wants to do offensively. And I think you'll see it. I mean, I think you'll see they brought over pretty much all the role players from those Ravens team, whether it's Hayden Hurst, whether it's Gus Edwards, to operate what Greg Roman wants to do with those multiple tight end looks and then just play action off them. I mean, just giving – I know Jerry is in the chat saying that this Raiders secondary is going to surpass expectations. I don't even think they go at the secondary. I think they're just play actioning, throwing it right over the linebackers all day long. But I think that's a game plan that's going to be able to work with what the Chargers have offensively.
And I think if I'm these Raiders edge defenders, I know that I'm going to be in for a fist fight in a phone booth the entire day. And if I'm Max Crosby, I know I might get hit by 4 things before I reach the ball. It's going to be a tight end, it's going to be a tackle, it might be a fullback, and then it's going to be, boom, the running back.
They will not let Max Crosby
down your chest. But I think that Jim Harbaugh will allow his guys to run that football directly at him because they want to put, how do you strain a great rusher? You run the football at them. You run the football at them until they do not want to play anymore. And Max Crosby's a guy that will never quit. I know that about Max Crosby. We love Max Crosby in this room. But the challenge is going to be on those edge defenders for the Raiders to hold up against that because it ain't no fun when the Rabbits got the gun. And now Jim Harbaugh's got the gun with Joe Alt and this offensive line, and they're going to try to go right at the teeth of this Raiders defense, in my opinion.
So you going Chargers?
I'm going to go Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going Chargers this one as well. All right, 4 p.m.
Raider Nation's going to kill me.
4 p.m. slate where we can't even fill up a quad box. I'm going to talk before we get to the game. Every time the NFL puts like the 2 games, 3 games in the 4 p.m. slate, what are we doing?
There's a black screen in the bottom right.
A dozen games in the noon or 1 p.m. slate. I can still call it the noon slate. That's what it was as a kid. The 1 p.m. slate. And then if all of a sudden it's just like 3 games and one of them's always trash, like one of them's always just a complete dud. It's
Chris and I used to call that one the hangar game because like it happened in a hangar in Area 51. Nobody watched it. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to those boys.
But the Broncos travel to Seattle, face the Seahawks.
Uh-huh.
Bo Nix gets his first taste of the NFL. Seahawks are 5.5-point favorites. 41.5 is the over-under here. Head coach, I'm giving to the Broncos. Sean Payton, we're not going to put a rookie head coach over him just yet. Quarterback, got to give it to the Seahawks and Geno Smith. Receivers, this one's maybe the biggest mismatch of the game. Got to give it to the Seahawks and what they have in that trio. Running back field, again, Kenneth Walker, the best running back in this game, bar none. Offense, Zach Charbonnet might be the second best running back in this game as well. Offensive line, this is what I'm giving to the Broncos. Seahawks with their injuries. Abe Lucas, obviously, he's on the PUP list. That's worrisome, sending out George Fant at right tackle. Give it to the Broncos. It's not like either side is anything special, though, in that regard. Defensive line, I don't know. This one, I kind of like both these defensive lines, I think, more than they're getting hyped up to be. I think the Seahawks have enough talent to run what Mike McDaniels wants to do. I think, I would expect better results from the Seahawks offensive line than the Broncos defensive line this year. But I like the talent that the Broncos have. Adding John Franklin Myers this year, I think Baron Browning and Nick Benito are in for big years, and especially against this Seahawks tackle duo, those guys are going to be tough to block with how much speed they have coming off the edge. So I think those will be impact players in this game as well. But then the back seven, this is where the Seattle defense really shines, is that secondary. To me, one of the better secondaries in the NFL. Devin Witherspoon, an elite slot corner. Tariq Woolen, fantastic in his own right. They added Rayshon Jenkins to the mix. Julian Love at safety as well. I like what they have in that regard, and it's just going to be tough sledding for Bo Nix in week 1.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about this Broncos defense. And obviously, the Broncos fans, of which there are many, and I'm buddies with one of them, Cowboy Reed up there, Greenlight, it tells me that they're all excited about this John Franklin Myers guy in a starting role. But there's leadership issues. They don't have that, the real leaders on the back end there in the Broncos room. So the onus is going to be on this offense. And again, we talked about Bo Nix in the preseason, the things we were impressed by with his ability to get the ball out on time and in rhythm with this offense. It's like a hand in a glove for Sean Payton's offense. My question is, what is McDonald going to show Bo Nix in the first quarter? What is he going to take away from him in the second quarter? First drive, second drive, or we're going to be looking at different looks. He's going to want to show Bo Nix things to invite him into his thing, and then it's like, it's a trap. The Star Wars quote, it's a trap. That's what the McDonald defense is going to do. And you said you don't know which defense you want to lean towards. I'm going to tell you, as a guy who played against the Seahawks in Seattle, I'm going to give it to the Seattle defense every single time they're in the Pacific Northwest because, man, oh, man, that's a tough place to communicate. There is no communication pre-snap. And for Bo Nix, that's going to be a big part of his game this year is seeing things, having Sean Payton in his headset, being able to communicate with his receivers. You are not afforded that luxury in Seattle.
He's going to feel like he's back in the SEC. True. I'd be like, no shout out, no hate against the Pac-12 outside, Oregon, obviously where he played, Outson, loud stadium. It ain't like it's going to be in Seattle. It ain't like it was.
It's not a stadium, it's a zoo.
SEC. So that is my worry is just rookie quarterback going into that environment with Mike McDonald's defense. It's like, that's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough sledding.
Can the Broncos play complementary football? That's the only way that they go up there and win against the Seahawks, who we think is a really dangerous team with a quarterback who can deliver the ball to his weapons. Geno Smith, a natural thrower of the football. There's a lot of these quarterbacks who say they're good quarterbacks, and there's some dudes who can just sling it. And I put Geno in that confident thrower of the football category. So you can never write the Seahawks team out. And the big question mark is, how is this defense going to look with McDonald? Obviously, they're going to have a new identity, but how good can they be?
I think it could be really good. Honestly, I think this could be.
That's why I think this game is one of my favorite games of the week.
Well, my favorite bet here is the under 41.5. I just don't see the Broncos putting up points, unfortunately. And again, I don't think the Seahawks, with the issues at tackle right now, I don't think they're going to be able to consistently move the football. And even if they do, it's like I think the Broncos could be a 10 to 13.
Seahawks win, Denver covers, and it's going to go under.
Could be. That's good. It's a good call. All right. Cowboys at Browns, the next game in the 4 p.m. slate. Browns are 2.5-point favorites at home, so a tight one. 41.5 points is the over-under in this one. We got CeeDee Lamb still ramping up on the Cowboy side, maybe on a pitch count. Deron Bland, the cornerback, Mr. Pick 6 himself, he's on IR. Other side of the ball, Nick Chubb, started the season on PUP. He won't be playing. And then Jedrick Wills just returned to practice. Jack Conklin's a little beat up. I feel like that's a weekly thing there with the
evergreen
tackle position. Yeah, exactly. So my tail of the tape, head coach, toss-up. I had those guys, whether it's Mike McCarthy, Kevin Stefanski, I think they're both good head coaches. I don't think either are like stupendous head coaches. Quarterback.
McCarthy's got a street named after him in Lamboville, bro, in Green Bay.
I said what I said. I'm
just saying, you're a Green Bay guy. You're supposed to be like, oh, Mike McCarthy.
And this is one of this matchup. Quarterback, it's Cowboys. That's the only position I'm giving to the Cowboys in this one. Receivers,
this is
backfield,
crazy.
Offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, secondary. Now the backfield, neither are good, right? You have no Nick Chubb, obviously, with the Browns. And
when do you think he's going to be back, by the way?
So Jerome Ford starting. Gosh, what I saw, I would just be surprised if he's ever back. Gotcha. He can play again, but he's not going to be Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
But I'll still take Jerome Ford over the corpses of maybe a little bit too morbid. The shells of Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott at this point. Offensive line, when you're starting multiple rookies up front, just let me get the Browns on that side. D-line, they're both nasty D-lines. But Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith.
True X factor.
Those guys, they're unblockable. Linebackers, Browns, secondary. Again, Cowboys secondary, no slouch themselves, but this Browns secondary, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson Jr., Greg Newsome. That's an
it's
elite.
Funny
that's the best
we're looking at the tail
NFL.
of the tape, and this is awesome. I mean, this really is awesome. When we talk about the Browns all the time, we say if this quarterback can just wake up and play any semblance
the
of
tick box
football,
you want. They do not have.
This is a Super Bowl ready roster. Also an evergreen tweet about the Cleveland Browns in the last few years. The roster's ready to win. The O-line, the D-line, those are the two most important positions outside of quarterback, in my opinion, in the National Football League. They've got these guys in droves. But if Deshaun Watson can just somehow look, it's like, this is like that game show where you and I, you're a girl, I'm a guy, and there's a wall between us, and we ask each other questions, and we start to get an image of like, oh, this is going to be awesome. She likes this and this and this, and then the thing comes up. We're going to see that wall come up, and find out who the Cleveland Browns really are and who Deshaun Watson really is. We know who the Browns are. We're going to find out who Deshaun Watson is. And the same thing for the Cowboys. We know who the Cowboys are. Granted, they didn't have any check boxes on there. They're going to score a lot of points. They're going to be a fun team to watch. At the end of the day, the only question that I have is Deshaun Watson going to be able to play football at an NFL level for this Browns team? He doesn't need to be a world beater. He just needs to get the job done.
We got producer Harry saying it's the dating.
The dating game. Thank you, Harry.
That was a great. You're sick. It's second grade. You're watching Game Show Network, and it's like you're watching that.
I just watch Web Gems on repeat. Big Web Gems guy.
I was a Game Show Network guy. Everything you said about the Browns, it's just like Deshaun. It all comes back to Deshaun, and I'm going to lean Browns in this one, but I don't love it. I don't love them because of that.
I don't know if it's Deshaun, if he lost it, like, and was that Space Jam when they lost their powers? Like, did he lose the powers, or is he hurt? Is he injured? Is this thing just not right?
I think that it's almost like a twofold. One, his arm, like if you really are nursing a constant shoulder, you're never going to be the same. But then also the confidence. Like he went from being one of the most beloved athletes in football history, right? In terms of just like college, everyone loved him. Texans, he was the man. And like anywhere you go, Deshaun, you're the man. Now to being a pariah. Like anywhere he goes, people are like, ooh, that's Deshaun Watson. Like, ooh.
Tough sledding.
And it's just that the mental toll that takes, and like rightfully so, is what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. You have to think you're the man. You have to go out there every single day and not question yourself ever. And I think at some point, I hope over the last few years, he has questioned himself in his decision making. So I think that's a big aspect.
An OG once told me, an offensive lineman that was just a real vet. He was like, you're going to feel great about your abilities. You're going to feel confident. And then the first day that you don't, you got to believe it and get out, because it gets ugly really quick. Yeah. And for a guy like Deshaun Watson, it's not in the same physically demanding position at quarterback. But to your point, it's that confidence, it's the mentality. And if you add into that shoulder injury that seems to be lingering, it could be bad news for Cleveland. But they've got the great team. I'm going to pick the Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys go and get it done on the road. I can't wait to watch these two rookies, Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe, get after it. They're going to be leaning on one another against this front in a hostile environment. Cleveland, no easy place to play.
All right, next up on the 4 p.m. slate, Commanders traveling to Tampa Bay to face the Bucs. Another line that I just couldn't believe when I saw it. 3.5 points only. Tampa Bay Bucs are getting. And I didn't give them a lot of tick marks for the Commanders in this one. Head coach, I called a wash between Todd Bowles and Dan Quinn there. But quarterback, giving it to Baker Mayfield. Receiver, giving it to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. Running back field, called that one a wash. I don't love what the Bucs have in Rachaad White. I think he's more of just a pass catcher rather than a true running back. But on the opposite side, I think Brian Robinson's just a running back, not a pass catcher. Like he's not dynamic in his own right. So that one I called a wash. O-line, D-line, give me the Tampa Bay Bucs on both of those. Linebacker is a little bit closer, but Levante David's still a one-of-one dude. Gave the nod to them even with no Devin White. And then secondary, the Commanders secondary, we've talked about a lot about their O-line struggles, but this secondary could look rough as well. They have a lot of young guys who are very unproven, whether it's Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St. Juste, now rookie Mike Sainer still starting in the slot, Quan Martin starting at safety, that when you have young guys in the secondary and it doesn't go well, I know this all too well from being a Packers fan when they drafted all those guys in 2015, 2016, and they turned out to just be terrible.
They still kicked our ass.
Turned the keys over to them, and all of a sudden it was just disaster. It can go bad, and that's kind of what this Commanders team did, obviously losing all they lost in Cam Curl and Kendall Fuller over the course of the offseason, that it could look rough. So for all those, if you haven't guessed, with all the tick marks I have going to Tampa Bay's way, plus them being at home, this is one of my favorite bets of the week.
You were just talking about how Deshaun Watson, when he was in college, he was one of the most beloved players. I remember Dabo Swinney saying he's like the Michael Jordan of football, college football, and then he goes and he does those historical things in Houston. I think we could be seeing a little bit of that with Jaden Daniels. He's kind of this cult folk hero. He's a little too skinny to be out there playing with the big boys. He doesn't look like all the other quarterbacks. Well, throw all that stuff out the window, man. You got a ball player. This guy knows how to play the game of football. He's obviously a leader of men. The guys love to rally around him. I feel like with this defensive-minded head coach and Dan Quinn, who has improved units everywhere he's been, the units have trended upwards. I feel like that really can settle down a rookie quarterback, knowing that defense is going to be taken care of by a guy like Dan Quinn. And I think about the Wagner signing, and it's a coach on the field for that defense. You know what I'm saying? And what he may lack in steps at this point in his career, he has it in droves from an intelligence standpoint. That means a lot. And that's the defense that Jaden's going to play against. He's going to have to be playing the check game with Wagner all the time in practice. And are they going to be able to do that in the real game? Is Jaden Daniels going to be enough of a folk hero to carry this Washington Commanders team, who got no check marks on Mike Renner's tail of the tape, and keep him in this game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We know what we're going to get with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're a team that's going to be feisty and scrappy, and they're going to be explosive on offense, and they're going to be around at the end of the season. What we don't know is what Jaden Daniels and his Washington Commanders have. 3.5 points. I got to go with the Bucs, and I'm going to take the over.
Ooh, he's going over. He thinks some fireworks happen. Yeah, I got to go Bucs. This one's my favorite of the week. Over under, I'm not going to touch, but I think the Bucs just roll. I mean, I cannot see this Commanders team.
I think Jaden Daniels has some highlight plays here. It'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Sunday Night Football. Rams at Lions. Matt Stafford.
The Stafford Bowl.
Detroit with that dynamic receiving core. Lions are 3.5-point favorites. 51.5 points is the over under in this one. But I'm only giving Rams head coach and quarterback. Outside of that, the Lions get every single other tick mark. Now, it's very close at offensive line. I love what this Rams offensive line has this year. I think it could, by year's end, be a top 5 unit, but this is still the Lions, right? This is still the Lions offensive line. Very close at receiver, but Cooper Kupp's 32. He's getting up there. Everyone thinks just he's coming back from those hamstring injuries. He'll be the same. Never really relied on athleticism, but at some point, you don't have the same caliber of juice.
32. That's crazy.
Whereas Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, who looked great this preseason, and then T.J. Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, you got to throw into the mix there in that receiving unit as well.
Who's breaking into that tier 1.
Gives them the nod. Defensive line is a bloodbath. This Lions defensive line is loaded this year with what they did this offseason, bring in DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, and all the draft picks they've invested there in recent years as well. And then the secondary, what this Lions team did to rebuild it. And I like what the Rams did to rebuild it as well. But that's why they got the nod for one of my favorite off seasons in the NFL this year. All those point to the Lions, but it is a Matt Stafford revenge.
Yeah, dude. And the 2 check marks at the top, the head coach and the quarterback, they hold a great deal of weight. And, it's not just any good head coach and any good quarterback. That's Matt Stafford, the wizard. And that's Sean McVay, the mad scientist. These 2 guys are so much fun to watch on offense. Matt Stafford, the ability to manipulate defense with his eyes, cross-field throws, outbreakers. He can make any throw on the field. So at the end of the day, if you've got some guys out there who can catch the football, granted, not as good as the Lions receiving core, you're going to be okay for the Rams. I am going to pick the Lions. I have the Lions going all the way to the Super Bowl and losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. But at the end of the day, I look at this offensive line, the defensive line. You talked about how they've built up that unit in the draft. And, what is it? Decker, Glasgow, Ragnow, Zeitler, and Penei Sewell. That's like a Pro Bowl group. That's a group you break the huddle with in Hawaii, my man. Okay. So I'm going to put my money on the Lions every time I can, because that's just what I believe in. I believe that's the most important facet of the football game, the line of scrimmage, and they're going to win it. And when it comes time for those decisions for Dan Campbell, he has faith that he can say, keep the offense out there. We're not punting it, because they have ass kickers up front. And that's how you win football games in the National Football League if you don't have a Mahomes type at quarterback.
The one thing that scares me, so it's not only the Matt Stafford revenge game, but this is the Jared Goff revenge game.
Yes.
You guys who are dealt for each other. In those 2 matchups, just conceptually, in my head, I'm thinking Matt Stafford in this, you're going to see his best. Like, he is going to come out and want to prove the other team wrong. Jared Goff, though, conceptually in my head, in a matchup like this, I think you see a shriveled Jared. Like, I expect him to be like, oh, there's too much pressure. I have to prove these Rams wrong. Oh, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, that's just how I view those 2 quarterbacks and their personalities going into a game like this. I just can't see Jared Goff being like screw it, I'm going to prove these guys wrong.
He doesn't have to.
But
he doesn't have to.
That is the other thing. They don't have to.
He's the VIP being transported in a foreign land by some of the best security defense contractors in the world. You have the baddest men on planet Earth surrounding you, Jared Goff. The confidence should be oozing out of you. And granted, you talked about he's going to try to make it Jared Goff versus Matt Stafford versus Rams. Throw that out the window. It's football. At the end of the day, make your reads, make your throws. Now, for Matt Stafford, we know that's different. He's going to wake up with fire coming out of his ass, ready to get after the Detroit Lions. That is the difference between these two quarterbacks. And obviously, we love Matt Stafford, but I'm going to pick the Lions. I mean, I have to pick the Lions. I'm going Lions
as well. All right, last game of the week, Monday Night Football. We got a great one.
Dude.
Aaron Rodgers.
Let's go!
They did him dirty by putting him back on Monday night, but at least they didn't have him playing on that MetLife turf. He's traveling to San Francisco to face the 49ers. 49ers, 4.5-point favorites. 43.5 is your over-under in this one.
I wonder if his family will be at the game.
They live right there. They live right up in NorCal. Apparently talks to his dad now. Good on him. They had a little mea culpa. San Francisco 49ers, I'm giving them the nod in the head coach. I'm giving the Jets the nod at quarterback, though. 49ers obviously get the nod at receivers. Backfield, I gave this one a wash. Maybe controversial, but CMC with a calf injury that he was hampering all.
I'm checking the Jets there.
No
Jets.
more Elijah Mitchell. He's checking Jets. He likes
Jets.
Breece Hall that much. So that one to me is close. Offensive line, I'm giving to the Jets here, even if the graphic doesn't quite show that. I'm giving the Jets. I just think the 49ers, now Trent, ageless, I don't worry about him, but you still have a lot of youth up front, whereas the Jets, they really solidified this thing, at least for now, when they're all healthy. Defensive line, also giving it to the Jets. 49ers, obviously, no slouch themselves. Linebackers, if Dre Greenlaw was healthy, 49ers get this nod. He's not. Give me the Jets. They are the two best linebacking units in the NFL, though, when both healthy. Secondary, another one that I got to go Jets. Now, again, this is no knock to the 49ers. If you're going D-line, linebacker, secondary, they're very good in all of those. The Jets are just flat out better in all of those. That's how you get to be the best defense in the NFL the way they have it. So all that said, I like the Jets in this. 4.5 points. I know it's the cross-country trip, but it's cross-country the good way. You don't want to go the other way. It's cross-country the good way, apparently. And 43.5, I don't have a take on that, but I do think the Jets cover that, and I think the Jets win flat out.
It's cross-country the good way for a few reasons. When you come from the East Coast or the Midwest or in the summer, it's so sticky and humid. You get off the plane in the Bay Area and you go, oh, my God, people live like this. This is incredible. The sun is shining. I'm not sweating. It's just nice. Mm-hmm. Which quarterback do you think is under the most pressure this week in this night game?
I think Purdy feels more pressure. I don't think Aaron Rodgers gives one darn.
See, that's the thing. Aaron is really good at playing off this, guys, I
don't care persona, but he really does care.
I think he cares more than anybody.
Yeah.
And I think he might put a lot of pressure on himself. Now, I do think that it comes down to his health, because at the end of the day, I've seen Aaron Rodgers do it one too many times. He's ripped my soul out and my teammates' souls out one too many times. And for Brock Purdy, the question is, how quickly can this offense get up to speed, being that they didn't have a ton of reps together? And that's really it. I don't have a lot of questions about the Niners outside of, I think Trent Williams is going to be in shape. There's a big difference between being in off-season shape and game shape. It may take Trent one series. He's just an alien. He does things a little bit differently. And I hate when people lead with, I can't believe he's 35. I'm like, dude, the guy hasn't given up a sack since Vietnam, bro. So Trent Williams is the guy you want out there. And they got Ayuk back. CMC, I say keep that guy healthy. Let's not get him to 5,000 yards rushing this year. Let's keep him healthy so we can lean on him in the playoffs. I'm going to be picking the San Francisco 49ers at home. I don't think it's because Aaron Rodgers plays poorly. I just think it's because they look pretty darn good with their whole group together.
Yeah, I'm just very high on this Jets team and think that trying to get all those guys up to speed that quickly, just didn't practice. They're just going to be – you got to be precise to beat this Jets team. If it were if they're facing a run-of-the-mill NFC team, if they're facing the Cardinals defense, we're not even batting an eye. 49ers would put up 30, right? This is a team that isn't going to give you many opportunities. And so if you're on the wrong page a few times in a game and you're missing those opportunities,
this is the one I can't wait
to.
I can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers play for the Jets. I can't wait to see the Jets defense have the real faith that they have an offensive quarterback with some firepower. I mean, they were out there fighting a losing battle every week last year. It was like old style castle siege warfare where you're in there and you know an army's got you surrounded, but you're only going to fight your ass off because they're going to tell your story in a tavern. It's many centuries down the road. Well, now the cavalry has arrived. Okay, let's just hope he doesn't run out with another American flag. Keep the American flag in the locker room or hang it up. Don't give it in Aaron's hands.
It's not 9/11.
Go let him play. But you know what? I'm so excited to watch this. I really am. And I hated Aaron Rodgers for so long as an in-division opponent, but I got to respect the guy. He's so talented.
The NFL, hats off. They killed it with the slate of primetime games.
Yes.
This weekend. Very excited. All right, before we get away, though.
I'm going over in that game, too.
Over, okay. Our locks of the week. Our 3 favorite bets. We gave you some we liked, but here are the 3 favorite. We're going to be tracking them throughout the week to see who does better over the course of the season. What are your 3 picks that you really cannot see lose?
What did I have? I had the old Detroit Lions -3.5. I got Atlanta -3.5, and then I got our guy Jeffrey Simmons. Well, he's not my guy this week, and he's playing against the Bears, but I think he does get 1 sack, so that's over 0.5 sacks in your little PTP betting spreadsheet here.
I like that one, just because, one, the Bears interior, if there's anywhere they're susceptible, going up against Nate Davis is a mismatch, and then Caleb interior pressure. Just can you track him down being the thing. I'm going one prop from that game as well. And it's Caleb Williams under 245.5 passing yards. One, he's a rookie. First NFL game against a real defense, against a real pass defense. Like, that's a good secondary there in Tennessee. Yeah, they have a great receiving core, but it's like they may not have to. When you're favorites, you may not have to pass all game, which again, like, can lower your passing yardage total. You saw Geno Smith last year in Shane Waldron's offense with just as much firepower. Only averaged 241 yards a game last season. CJ Stroud, for as much as he was successful out the gate, he didn't go over 245 week 1. It's week 1. It's tough. And it's against a real defense. So I like the under in that one. I kind of like a lot of the rookies' unders in their passing.
I like your Chargers pick. I like your Chargers.
Chargers and Bucks. I gave those 2 on it. I think the Chargers are the better side against the Raiders, and the Bucks are for sure the better side against the Commanders, in my opinion. Again, these are my bets. But that one's one I'm going to have.
I think Jaden Daniels is the only guy who throws that I'm just a rookie stuff out the window. I think he really is just a psychopath and a great football player.
We shall see. Cannot wait. Football is back. On Monday, we'll be back talking 9:30 a.m., recapping all the 16 games that we just previewed. No, excuse me, 15 games. We're still going to have that Monday night one.
Yeah.
And giving you guys some closure on the week that was. Very excited. Until next time.
Tweet at us.
Please do. Kyle Long, Mike Renner. Keep pushing.